Josephine Bakhita was born in 1869 in Olgassa, in Darfur, a territory to the southeast of Sudan, in Africa. Olgassa was inhabited by the Dages, one of the major ethnic groups who had settled in that region centuries before. Bakhita's family was wealthy. She herself said, "My life was completely happy. I did not know the meaning of sorrow." Bakhita had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. In 1874 the elder sister was kidnapped. In 1876 2 men kidnapped Bakhita, who was then about 7 years of age. After a month's imprisonment she was sold to a slave trader. Josephine courageously attempted to escape, but was recaptured by a shepherd and sold again to a fierce-looking man who sold her to a slave trader. One day she was beaten and left unconscious and bleeding on the ground. She was then sold to a Turkish general, whose wife subjected Bakhita to the torture of tattooing. Her torturer spared only her face, because it was very beautiful, while he inflicted 114 cuts with a razor on her stomach and arms. Then salt was rubbed into her wounds to keep them open. In 1882 the Turkish general sold Bakhita and Khartoum to the consular official Callisto Lignani, who was very kind to her. He dressed her in a tunic which restored her dignity as a woman. He would have brought her back to her own village if Bakhita had been able to remember its name, but she was too small at the time of her kidnapping to register exact details. When, in 1885, Lignani was preparing to leave Africa for Italy, Bakhita asked to go with him. They embarked, together with a friend of the consul, Augusto Micheli. It was to Micheli that Lignani gave the young Josephine upon their arrival in Genoa. Mr. Micheli, a rich businessman from Venice, took Bakhita with him to his villa at Zianago, near Murano Veneto. Here, for 3 years, Bakhita was nursemaid to the little daughter, Alice, nicknamed Mimina. The Michelis were good, honest people, but not churchgoers. Mrs. Terina Micheli, who was Orthodox, had forbidden Bakhita to enter a church. However, Micheli's manager, Illuminato Cecchini, helped her journey of faith. A man with a heart of gold and an enlightened conscience was how Bakhita described him. He always had a fatherly love for her. Cecchini helped to educate of the young Josephine. The Micheli returned in 1886 to Africa, where they had acquired a large hotel at Swakim and took Bakhita with them. The following year, Josephine returned with the Micheli family. Illuminato presented her with a little crucifix, saying to himself, "Jesus, I entrust her to you. Now, you look after her." He was also instrumental in placing Mimina and Bakhita in the care of the Canutian sisters in Venice when the Michelis had to leave again for Swakim. At this institute Bakhita was admitted to the catechumenate. When, after 9 months, Mrs. Micheli returned for her daughter and Josephine, in order to take them back again to Africa, Josephine refused. It was on that occasion that Bakhita, who was still a catechumen, displayed great faith. She knew the Micheli family was kind and provided economic security, and the hope of rediscovering her family if she returned to Africa. But, Bakhita preferred God's love and abandonment to divine providence for her future. Thus she said, "No, I cannot return to Africa, because I would not be able to profess my faith in the Lord. I love the lady and her little girl very much, but I cannot lose my God. So I am remaining." It was the 29th of November 1889. The Patriarch of Venice and the King's Procurator, who, according to Italian law, which forbade slavery, declared her to be a free person. On January 9, 1890 Josephine received baptism, confirmation, and Holy Communion at the hands of the Patriarch of Venice, Cardinal Agostini. After she had been baptized, receiving the names of Josephine, Margherita, and Fortunata, Bakhita remained at the Institute of the Catechumens. Here she soon became aware of the call to a life of special consecration. Josephine was afraid to join because of her color. Her confessor reassured her. He explained to Josephine, "God does not look at the color of one's skin, but rather at the innermost depths of one's heart." Bakhita was accepted, and after 3 years of novitiate she made her vows on December 8, 1896. Here she spent the best part of 45 years, immediately gaining the sympathy and esteem of all the town's inhabitants, who began to call her affectionately Madre Moretta, Black Mother. During the First World War, with great love, she tried to ease the physical suffering and moral anguish of all those around her, in particular, the soldiers looked after in the institute, which had been turned into a military hospital. During the Second World War, people attributed to her presence the fact that the town was preserved from the bombing. In fact, when the alarm sounded, Bakhita would say, "Don't worry, because the master knows what he has to do, nothing will happen here." From the moment of her profession, she showed how close she felt to her African brothers and sisters. On that day she uttered the following heartfelt prayer: "O Lord, if I could but fly to my people and preach aloud your goodness to everyone. Oh, how many souls would I win for you? Among the first would be my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister, still a slave. All the poor black people of Africa. Grant, Jesus, that they too may know and love you." Josephine suffered great illnesses, and after over 50 years in the consecrated life she died. The Virgin Mary came to comfort her at the moment of her death on Saturday, February 8, 1947. Please subscribe to Catholic News World's YouTube channel. Thanks and God bless.